friends. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to Classical Chats. I'm Hayden.
I'm Liz.
And welcome to the Crown Breakdown, where we go through episode by episode of Season 4 of The Crown. Before we get into this week's episode, if you enjoy talking about The Crown and other fun British dramas, please hit the bell icon, subscribe, and also, as we're nearing the end of this series, in the comment section down below, let us know what show would you want to do next? What other content would you like us to review and talk about? But little disclaimer at the top of the episode, part 1, this is an alleged version of history. This is a fictitious playing of events. The characters at which we will be talking about are characters, not the real people. Of course, there will be commentary about what is in history versus what's being portrayed and how they portray it. But this is history. No, this is not history. This is a drama. This is a fake show.
This is historical fiction.
Yes.
Part 2 of disclaimer. I have no notes and it's been a month since I've watched this episode. So no promises on my end. So we're going to get into this, but I cannot emphasize that enough. So.
Yes. So, episode 9, titled Avalanche. We are now in 1988. We're almost to the end of the decade, end of the season. But before we actually get into the episode, this was the episode that was impacted most by COVID.
Yeah.
So, when in England, and much like the rest of the world, in March, when we had to lock our doors and go inside, they had 6 days of shooting left. And in fact, the last bits of shooting they had to do was this episode specifically. So parts of this episode and the structuring of this episode had to be different because they couldn't finish. They had 6 days. They were able to shoot a couple of vignettes and a couple things, and we'll talk about it. But this episode is also the shortest in the season. This sits at about 49 minutes. Most of them sit between 50 to 55, maybe an hour and 2 minutes. This is the shortest at 49 minutes, which isn't necessarily much, but this was the episode that was most affected by COVID. This was an episode they shot towards the end. But this episode, we're back to a Charles and Diana episode.
Yes.
The episode opens with a wonderful replication of history where Charles, for his 37th birthday, they go to one of the theaters. They see, I looked it up, what they perform is a scene from Verdi's Othello. Or Othello. But
yeah.
That is what's on stage.
Othello.
I will say, what did you think of what Diana wore, if you can remember? Can you remember what she wore?
Wasn't it the blue dress?
Close. It was a interpretation of the blue dress. So when Liz says blue dress, she's thinking of the one from the Cannes Film Festival in France, where it's this blue chiffon and it has this huge... because they didn't go there. The show didn't go there, but they wanted to have that gown. Yeah. So they made a different version of it and put her in it because there's no press photos that they could find. Yeah. They replicated it, but made it purple and gold. And put her in it and that. But one of the things that happens this episode is, in this part of the episode, is we see her dance to Uptown Girl by Billy Joel with the one choreographer who's her best friend, who's gone on record going, this was terrifying to do. We didn't know how the crowd was going to react. This actually happened. She did stage a dance for Charles's 37th birthday to Billy Joel's Uptown Girl. Now, Charles is a wet blanket. And he's an asshole.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Everybody loves it. The crowd loves it.
Not person. We have to
character. The character Prince Charles.
But
he yells at her. He dead ass yells at her.
I know. I hate him in this episode so much.
There's such a
As
double
we're starting to
standard.
talk about it, I remember more and more of it, and I hate him.
There's a double standard in this episode that we'll talk about. But yeah, so he gets angry at her. He's being a dick. He's like, how could you do that? They clapped for you for 8 minutes on my birthday. And she looks and goes, I thought you would want something like this. She says, I best express myself by performing, whether it's dancing, singing, just something. That's how I can best express my feelings. You love going to, like, I put A and B together, and C told me that you would like this. And he goes, no, do not make a spectacle of yourself. And he's just pissed. And he yells at her, and she goes, I'm starting to loathe you. And he goes, it's about time you got on board with the rest of us. This does not do, this really makes a lot of people turn on the real person Charles. This episode does a lot where people got really angry at the real person Charles, but also this is fictitious, made up, blah 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 blah. But one thing that I'm gonna point out is the next morning, Queen and Duke of Edinburgh are reading papers, and there's a general thing that everybody approves of what Diana's doing. In the family, everybody's like, you're doing great, kid, you're doing wonderful. Everybody approves, except Charles. Charles is the only one not on board. Charles is the only one that hasn't gotten the memo. And there's a wonderful conversation. I don't know if you remember, but the Queen's reading everything, and she goes, oh, look, Diana put on this fun thing. This looks fun. This looks cool. She says this looks fun, and Prince Philip goes, why didn't you dance for me when you were that young? Why didn't you do that for me? And she dead ass looks and goes, if my memory's right, I believe you had the ballerina already doing that for you. Burn! There's some sick burns these last 2 episodes.
Yes.
And my inner gay man is going like, yes, bitch, read him. And he goes, and he just goes, I don't. She goes,
Yeah.
But one thing that really happens this episode, which is true, this is a real part of history that they bring. Charles and Diana go with friends to go skiing, and an avalanche happens, and Charles and I forget the name of the friend get pinned, and they don't know if Charles is alive or dead. That is real history that happened, and however, the show takes an interesting route with it, where one, we get to see the Queen show emotion. What did you think of seeing? Yeah, what did you think of the scene where the secretary actually goes, "The Prince of Wales is missing. An avalanche has happened. A body's been found. That's all we know." What did you think of that?
It's not fully coming back to me, but I remember thinking, I mean, we don't get to see the Queen show a lot of emotion, so it's always kind of refreshing when we do get to see it, because it makes her more human. And I mean, Queen Elizabeth is, the character and the person is very stoic and very monarchly, if that's a word.
I believe the only time I believe the only time she's cried in public was at the funeral of Princess Margaret and the Queen Mother. I believe those were the only 2 times and even then it's like the one like having a private moment, like coming back and then finishing it and then having your moment in private. She only shows her emotions in private. And even then it's few and far between. But we see the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh on edge as parents. Our child is hurt, our child's missing, our child could be dead. And they talk about, which is very real, all the contingency plans for the royal family for their funerals. And they're all named after bridges. The Queen Mother is a bridge. I know the Queen is London Bridge. Duke of Edinburgh is another type of, I think he's Tower Bridge. Charles is like Mannheim Bridge or something, but they all have something bridge. And she says, they use that. They've started using bridges because it's a way to show, you're crossing from one side to the other. So it was very refreshing to see her show these emotions. But then we begin to see these vignettes of just one person. We see like the queen sort of sitting there thinking and having a pensive moment. We see one of
Mm-hmm.
the Duke of Edinburgh. And then later on in the episode, there is a lot of vignettes of Charles alone,
Yeah.
mixed with like stock photos, especially early in the episode, like stock photos and video footage from the actual period of this is happening, this has happened. And
Yeah.
that is because COVID happened.
COVID.
Those scenes are a direct result of COVID happening.
Yeah. This is how we go on with life in pandemic.
Yes, they were able to finish. And there's a vignette, there's one of the little compilations where they talk about filming it. They go, we were hit with COVID when we had to film the avalanche and few scenes getting in and getting out of it. And that's why they put like newsreel audio over videos of the period to fill that gap, because I think they had full intention of actually replicating like out there on the snow, but they just couldn't do it because
Oh, absolutely.
the world
It's not safe.
caught on fire. If the world caught on
not safe.
fire, not safe, and they had to keep everybody safe. But at this point, things are coming to the surface. The public and the family are now being well aware that the Waleses are putting on a facade. They aren't happy. Both Charles and Diana are having affairs. Charles has not left Camilla. He never left Camilla. She's been here this entire time. And Diana's having just kind of various short affairs with her bodyguard, with her riding instructor, with another random guy. She's living her young 20s, having fun.
Yeah.
And everything's beginning to come to the surface of their marriage, that everything is a lie. This isn't happy. And Queen goes to Princess Anne and looks and goes, hey, what's going on? Give me the truth. Give me the whole truth. Nothing but the truth. And Princess Anne goes, all right then. Tells her everything.
Yeah.
Then we have the funeral of the one actual companion that passes away. And this was a really big turning point. This in history, this avalanche was a really big turning point with Princess Diana and Prince Charles, because Diana was angry at him. They were arguing. That is true. They were arguing on there. This is where their public distaste for one another really showed. And he went to Camilla afterwards. He didn't go to Diana. Yeah. He went to Camilla. And the Queen comes together and goes, we need to have a meeting. And she has a come to Jesus talk. And one of the things that bothers me in this episode, which we can have a short discussion about it, is the entire family is aware and has been aware, as well as the rest of Gloucestershire has been aware, that Charles is having an affair. And they don't say anything.
Yeah.
But Diana doing the same thing, she gets ridiculed. That's what the show presents us. She gets crucified. And what are your thoughts on that?
Already with a lot of things, I feel like it's just, again, a double standard for women.
I agree.
So I feel like it's kind of the double standard. We see that even with the joke earlier in the episode, we know that Philip had affairs. And that was fine. But did we ever hear anything about Elizabeth having an affair? No.
No, because she didn't.
Yeah, it's almost like the double standard of it is okay for the man to wander, but the woman has to stay on the straight and narrow. And I feel part of that historically has been because of women having the ability to bear children. And the fact that they are stuck with them for 9 months, and it's just like very much so this is the mother. And if a royal baby is born out of wedlock, that's with a man, you can hide that more, but for a woman, you can't hide that.
You can't do that. And one thing we can talk about briefly is it is no surprise in British royal history for the Prince of Wales to have affairs. when they're married. Edward the Seventh, most notably, had numerous affairs, and on his deathbed, Queen, if my memory's right, this is the right sovereign. If my memory's right, on his deathbed, Queen Alexandra brought his favorite mistress in and said, he's been asking for you. Because, and it's this understanding that, okay, the Princess of Wales will create an heir, create a spare, have a couple children, and then just be subservient and let the Prince of Wales do his thing, have his affairs, and just turn a blind eye to it. And one of the things, and we see that with Edward the Seventh, we see that with George the Fifth, where he had numerous affairs, but him and Queen Mary had a good understanding. But with Edward the Eighth, he was a numerous playboy when he was Prince of Wales, but he never married. And then we're seeing that again with Charles. History's repeating itself. We did not see that with George the Sixth, because George the Sixth was in love with only one woman and one woman only, and that was Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon.
Yeah.
She rejected him 3 times. Yeah, she rejected him 3 times, finally agreed. George the Sixth did not have any affairs because the only woman for him was the Queen Mother.
Yeah.
But the Queen Elizabeth calls Philip as like a moderator, and then we have Charles and Diana. They've been summoned. And one thing I appreciate is when they're doing the initial greeting, Prince Philip winks at Princess Diana. Like when they have their greeting, she curtsies, they do the kiss on the other cheeks, and he winks at her, which is sort of an illusion. Philip was always on Diana's side, which even when things got bad, this is true history. There's letters that they found that are on record that have been in books, especially in the Andrew Morton book. He comments on this, where Philip at times was harsh and critical, but he was always on Diana's side. Always. Yeah. Even to the bitter end. And we see that play out this season, where they have a really friendly relationship. But what do you remember of this conversation between all 4 of them?
What I can remember is basically Diana suck it up, and that's about it.
Close.
And I remember, didn't she? No, I'm thinking of a different conversation. Yeah. No.
So what happened? Well, what happened is the Queen looks and goes, hey, it's now becoming public knowledge that your marriage is failing. Yeah. This marriage is, and she goes, the marriages in the royal family are not allowed to fail, because if the marriage fails, it's a sign that the monarchy is failing and could put our positions in peril.
Yes.
Keeping your marriage happy and in a good place is important. I don't care what you have to do. I don't care, but there needs to be come to some general understanding. You need to be able to show respect to one another. And if need be, an agreement needs to be come to, and you are going to need to turn a blind eye to things if it makes sure that this works. And she looks at them and goes, basically, you two are on different pages and you need to come together to come to some agreement. And Charles begins to pull out like a full-blown pamphlet diatribe of like, here are the reasons why I hate this. And Diana cuts in and goes, I've done that. I've betrayed. I've broken my vows. I've done, ABC. I'm not proud of it. I've hurt you, Charles. I've hurt you, Queen. I've hurt everybody in the family. And she goes, I apologize. I'm sorry. I did it. I did it out of childish weakness. It's childish behavior. And she just owns everything. She goes, yeah, I did that. I did it. Not cute. It's not a cute look. And then the Queen goes, are you willing to try? And Diana goes, I don't want this marriage to fail. I want to try. And the Queen goes, okay, cool, it's settled then. And Charles goes, what about me?
Yeah,
and
I want it.
What? And I love Philip goes, what else is there to say? What else? And Diana completely throws herself into this marriage and getting it to work. Yeah. We see her talking to her therapist, going, this person's gone, this person's gone. She looks at her staff and goes, do not let this person in. They're gone. Ignore calls. And she's going, no, 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 no. And we can see her working on herself. And, I don't feel sorry for Charles at all. This episode, I don't feel
No.
sorry for him because he's given up and hasn't even tried.
Yeah,
Because we
absolutely.
see flashbacks past the halfway point, because the conversation happens at roughly the halfway point of the episode. We see like
Yeah.
vignettes around that scene of when Charles and Diana were happy,
Mhm.
specifically in Australia and when they were courting.
Yes. Yes.
But she's throwing herself into this marriage and trying to make it work. And then there's the famous seventh anniversary. So what do you remember about this?
Phantom of the Opera.
Yes.
Um,
So there's enough history to suggest that this happened. So why do I mean there's enough history to suggest that this happened? So at the time, Andrew Lloyd Webber and the Phantom of the Opera was in at London's West End. It's
yeah.
true that a production was happening, and Diana fell in love with it. She loved the show. Charles was like, okay, cool, fine, whatever. Didn't particularly care, but
Yeah.
Diana loved it, saw it many times, and it is believed because Andrew Lloyd Webber and the cast and dancers and costumes at the time have gone on record going, she came to us and did this. They've gone and said, yeah, she did this, she did this. It's unclear as to what it was
Yeah.
used for, but there's
Yeah.
enough allegation around with people that would have been involved to suggest this happened. Andrew Morton doesn't talk about it in his book. In the other Diana biography that I have, it isn't talked about. It's only the Phantom of the Opera people that have been talking about it. So
I want the tapes. I
yes,
want the
it's
tapes. I
somewhere
want to see the
somewhere in the
tapes.
Royal Archive. If this part of history is true, there's enough evidence to say yes, this did happen
Yeah.
because no, Peter Morgan did want to do it. He included it for the
Hmm.
seventh anniversary,
Hmm.
but we don't know how much is real, how much is fake. So, but how we get to it. So, Diana goes to Charles's private secretary. She follows the line of command, what she has to do, and goes, "Hey, for our wedding anniversary, I want Charles and Highgrove. I want the weekend free. Don't plan anything. If there's anything there, cancel it. Do whatever it is. It's our anniversary."
Hmm.
Charles forgets because he was going to plan a shooting weekend with Camilla,
Yep. Yeah.
and you see as the house is getting ready, all the pictures of Camilla go away and get replaced with ones of Diana. All the bed sheets get changed. You can see like Camilla's lingerie and Camilla's clothes that are there, and he's sort of hiding Camilla away briefly because Charles has given up.
Yeah.
He's not trying at this point. Also, can we talk about how at this point in the episode we get to see how kind of a rad mom Diana was?
Yeah. She.
Singing in the car, playing in the pool. Like
Yes.
we see how
Yes.
rad of a mom she was. But then there's the tape exchange. So or
Yeah.
there's the gift exchange. Charles gives her a gift, which I'm not gonna lie is kind
It's
of
like a
rad.
book or something.
It is a first edition of the history of
Oh
the
yeah.
ancestral seat of the Earl Spencers.
Yeah.
And while I think it's kind of cool, first edition put together by her great grandpa in the 19th century, early 19th century, when Althorp was completed and they had everything. But one thing to point out though is Diana didn't like Althorp. She didn't like it.
Yeah.
She, granted, she didn't loathe it, but she didn't love it.
Yeah.
She loved Park House more. When the family lived
Hmm.
at Park House, which is on the Sandringham estate, they rented it out because her mother lived there,
Hmm.
and her grandparents had it. When like one passed away and they moved out, the Spencers, or at that point they was Viscount and Viscountess Althorp, took over Park House. That's where
Hmm.
Diana grew up. She didn't grow up at Althorp, so she has mixed
Yeah.
feelings. So I was like, I understand the sentiment, Charles, but like
I get it.
she doesn't like Althorp that much. But thanks. But Diana gives, in my mind, the best gift anybody could ever get.
I mean, so for me, being a performer, specifically being a vocalist, I would never want to give this as a present because I would be so self-conscious about it. And knowing already that their love is not perfect 100%, he doesn't support her 100%, this is just ammunition for him to shit on her.
And he does.
And that's what it becomes.
And he does.
Yeah.
However, I appreciate her thought process. And I think it needs to be mentioned. She says, as it's already been mentioned, the best way to me to express feelings about myself is some form of performing, whether dancing, singing, whatever it is to perform. That's my best way. You hated it when I did this in public. You
Yes.
straight up hated it. So now I recorded it. It's private. No one else will see. No one else knows about this. It's just us. And, she went to a lot of effort to get this done. Rehearsals, costumes, singing. And a side anecdote, this is how one of the final pillars Emma had to do in order to get to be Diana. She was asked, she was, at the time, they were casting Camilla. And Emma was there, just an arbitrary person there reading for Diana. And they kind of noticed, hey, wait a minute. And one of the last things they asked for her to do is he went on the spot, can you sing All I Ask of You from Phantom of the Opera? Go.
Think of Me. For some reason, I remember her singing Think of Me.
What does Princess Diana sing in episode 9 of season 4 of The Crown?
According to Decider, in the penultimate episode of The Crown season
Here we go. Let's look at Decider. Yeah, it's all I ask of you.
My bad. I misremembered it.
It's fine. It's fine because it's weird. She's singing a duet by herself.
Yeah. We are not perfect.
No, we are not. We are not perfect. But
Clearly.
if you got this gift, so yes, she does end up singing a weird rendition of All I Ask of You from fandom, which is what Emma Corrin, I believe, if my memory's right, that's what she had to sing on the spot. And they liked her vulnerability, which is how she got it. But
yeah.
Back on topic of the episode, if you were given this gift, if somebody you loved, like if I went out of my way and did all this work to show my hey, I want to show my appreciation, you're a great person, here's something I made for you, would you look and go to your sister and talk shit about it?
Probably not.
But it's like...
I'm sorry. So for me, as a trained vocalist, and I love you to pieces, honey, you can do some great things. So here's the thing. It was not great. The intention behind it was wonderful and
beautiful.
Lovely, and I appreciate that, and I would give you all of the love and support for that. Now, would I ever listen to it again? Maybe not. Maybe if I was drinking with a very, very, very close friend who is maybe also a performer, maybe I shit on it for like a second and say, I love him to pieces. I appreciate everything behind this, but
damn, he really tried.
I would never do that. Yeah, he tried, and that's what matters. And I love it because of this. But God, I love it. But God.
And he just, and Diana's like, I did this. This song is about love and devotion and being with you, and all I ask is your love, and it's a great sentiment. There's a lot of thought and care behind it.
The sentiment is fabulous, and yeah.
And he just just looks and goes, it was embarrassing. She sounded awful. She did. It's like, then you do it then. Then you do it. If you think it's so bad and you don't like it, you do it. And then at this point, we start to see, at that point past the anniversary to the remainder of the episode, we begin to see vignettes pieced together where, Diana's trying. But one thing that it's talked about briefly, and it's kind of a throwaway, but it's worth mentioning. I can't remember where in the episode this falls, but Charles basically has Kensington Palace bugged and goes, if anybody comes to see Diana, let me know, and this is game over, which is weird. He's essentially there. Everybody's allowed to turn a blind eye to him being with Camilla, but the moment she relapses, I'm using that term loosely,
Yeah.
and starts seeing one of her previous beaux again, it's game over.
Yeah.
And we see that.
And I mean, for this, I think Charles had made up his mind a while ago that he wanted a divorce. He didn't care. He did not want to be married to her.
Period.
He wanted out, period, end of story. Didn't matter how he had to go about it. He wanted a divorce. And even though she was willing to work on it, even though everyone was willing to turn a blind eye to him, he wanted out. He just wanted out.
And we see him, sort of trying to be like, hey, Anne, sister, like, look at what she did. Ha, 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 ha. And while Anne doesn't necessarily chime in on the shitting, Anne, I think, sees the sentimental part of it to a point.
Yeah.
And she goes, hey, you need to talk to Camilla. And she basically calls him out and goes, you want this Romeo and Juliet fantasy, and it's not happening. It will not happen. You need to accept the imperfections in people. And Anne looks at him and goes, you need to accept the reality that with which you are around. You have a marriage that everybody wants to succeed. No one wants it to fail. And we all want you to put work into it. Yeah. Also, Camilla still loves Andrew. She's not going to leave him. Period. Point blank, period. Nope. She doesn't love you as much as you love her. This is all for naught. And we see a scene where Charles confronts her and goes, hey, would you leave Andrew? If I were to be able to leave Diana, would you leave Andrew? And she really doesn't, if my memory's right, she really doesn't kind of give him a concrete answer.
No, she doesn't.
Like, it's enough to keep Charles at bay and happy, but she really doesn't give a concrete yes, I will, or no, I won't.
Yeah.
And then for the remainder of the episode, we see these vignettes where Diana's trying to call. I want to see you. Hey. We see her putting effort in, and Charles blatantly ignoring her.
Yeah.
And of course, she tries. You can only try so hard. And then we hear calling. She then calls one of her previous beaux. One of her previous boyfriends, calls him back to Kensington Palace. And you can see, she doesn't really feel proud about it either. She doesn't feel good about it either. And she gets caught because the episode ends where Charles' secretary goes, the Princess of Wales had someone over, and she's in bed. You can see her feeling of regret. You see Charles get angry, and then the episode ends.
Yeah. Ugh.
This is not a good episode for Charles.
No. I mean, this is not a good season for Charles.
No, it is not.
This is not a good series for Charles. No. Period. End of story.
Point blank, period. It makes my heart hurt because I think we all can relate to being in a relationship of any kind where you're putting a lot of work in and that work isn't being reciprocated back.
And sometimes I feel like in terms of Charles and Diana's relationship, she sees how it is crumbling.
Mm-hmm.
And it is hard to be in a relationship and watch it crumbling around you and trying to do everything to save it, but knowing that it's not savable.
Been there.
Been there,
done that.
Yeah.
Would have been my marriage, but it's heartbreaking because it seems the way that Peter Morgan has presented, keyword what Peter Morgan has presented, is Diana knew her role. This Diana knew her place, knew her role, knew what she had to do. She's trying to do everything she can, and Charles is going, no, get out, get away from me, go away. So it's a little infuriating because the way that Andrew Morton is presenting it is Diana was trying and he just kind of was no. Now, history does make its way in here a little bit in that it is true things got really bad after Prince Harry was born because
Yeah.
Charles really wanted a daughter. He wanted a daughter, he wanted a little princess, and he didn't get one. He got Harry instead.
Yeah.
And he got Harry, and he got very angry at Diana because he wanted a daughter and he didn't have a daughter. And Diana has gone on record that things got kind of bad. I don't know if what we've watched is a good interpretation of that.
Yeah.
But one of the things about the marriage between Princess Diana and Prince Charles is it was so much of an ebb and flow. It was very much a come here, come here, come here, come here, go away, go away, go away, go away, come here, come here, come here. And you can only ride that wave for so long.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing the end of that go away, go away, go away, go away, go away. Where he was ready to look, I want a separation, I want it, and Diana didn't. And I can really relate to Diana not wanting something to end. Especially if you put a lot of work into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did we do the thing?
We did the thing. So, if you enjoyed us, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Hit the bell notification so that you get notified anytime we have an upload. Go ahead and comment down below if you have any comments for us. But also, we're on this was episode 9 of season 4, and there's only 1 episode left. We have 2 more episodes that we're going to be covering this season. So make sure to leave a comment down below with what you'd like to see us review next.
Yes.
So, like, review, subscribe, thumbs up. And if you enjoy us as people, we also have a podcast. Go ahead and check that out. Check out our social medias. Everything is linked down below. And most importantly,
stay royal.
bye.
Bye.